Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast. The podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman. You may have heard in the news recently that Dr Michael Mosley, who's the #1 international best-selling author of several books about gut health, blood sugar, and intermittent fasting, was found dead in Greece at the age of 67 while he was on holiday there in June 2024. It's very sad news for his family, of course, and also for the nutrition world. So in this week's episode, I'd like to share with you a recording of a book report I did that's inside of the After Sugar Club private membership, and that talks about his book, The Clever Guts Diet. We'll get to that book report in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources about how to get rid of cravings, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at MyLifeAfterSugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_LifeAfterSugar. Okay, so here is the recording of my book report of Dr. Michael Mosley's book, The Clever Guts Diet. So, what do you know about gut health? Probably not that much if you're anything like most people, or even anything like the medical establishment, which is only just discovering the importance of gut health and the gut-brain connection. And one of the books that I've been reading and really enjoying, and I want to share it with you, is called The Clever Gut Diet by a British doctor turned TV personality called Dr. Michael Mosley. What I like about his book is that he writes in a very relatable way. You don't feel that he's dumbing it down for you, but at the same time, he's not blinding you with science and Latin terms for different strains of bacteria or whatever. So The Clever Gut Diet, and this is the book that I'm going to summarize for you and quote from in the next few minutes. And what he says right at the beginning of the book is that the word diet in the book is not meant to be understood as a weight loss type of approach, even though weight loss may happen once we start doing what I pretty much say that he happens to agree with, which is to eat whole real foods and more fermented foods in your diet. So the first bit that I'd like to quote from on page 10, he says, "Your gut is a wonderful piece of engineering, and I hope after you've read this, you will share my enthusiasm for it." It's already there, right? That enthusiasm. But in many ways, the star of the digestive show is not actually part of the human body at all. It is the 2 to 4 pounds of microbes that live in your gut and make up the microbiome. Until recently, the world of the microbiome was a dark, dank, and private one. Down there live creatures that have never seen the light of day, more than 50 trillion of them, at least 1,000 different species, a richer diversity of life than you would find in a rainforest. A little bit later on, he continues, more important, while there are foods that will help your microbiome thrive, few of the products that are sold on this basis have credible science behind them. When it comes to prebiotics, probiotics, and supplements, he says, I will show you what works and what doesn't. He says, our widespread ignorance about the microbiome arises from the fact that until quite recently, its inhabitants, microbes, were impossible to study. We knew they helped protect the gut from dangerous invaders, that they synthesized a few vitamins and they gobbled up fiber that our bodies couldn't digest. Now we know far more than that. First of all, we know that they help regulate body weight. As we'll see in later chapters, he says the microbes in your gut can decide how much energy your body extracts from the food you eat. They control hunger signals. They help decide which foods you crave, and they determine how much your blood sugar spikes in response to a meal. Can your microbiome make you fat? It certainly can. Can you change your microbiome so it works with you rather than against you? You certainly can, he says, and he will show you how in this book. Number 2, he says, the microbiome not only protects our guts from invaders, it teaches and regulates our entire immune system. Over the last half century, we have seen a massive rise in allergic diseases such as asthma and eczema caused by an overactive immune system. We have also seen a huge surge in autoimmune diseases ranging from inflammatory bowel disease to type 1 diabetes, which again are primarily caused by an immune system that has gotten out of control. And in his book, he says, I will show you how changing the mix of bacteria in your gut can reduce the impact of these diseases. And third, he says the microbiome takes the bits of food our body can't digest and converts them into a wide range of hormones and chemicals. These, it seems, can control our mood, as well as our appetite and general health. Changing your biome may also reduce anxiety and lessen depression. So Michael Mosley gives us a list of foods that you can eat to feed your biome. And he says, these days when I put something in my mouth, I consider what it will do not just to my body, but also to my biome. And he adds that although the following recommendations are based on the latest science, you should take them as guidelines rather than gospel. For example, if you have IBS, then you may have to avoid some of the foods we suggest, at least until you have gotten on top of your condition. And he says that he's a fan of whole grains like rye, but they're not going to do you much good if you have a gluten intolerance or celiac disease. And even if you have no gut problems, the response to exactly the same foods varies from person to person. So do experiment with these foods and the recipes that he gives and see which suit you. So here are a few foods that nourish the gut that Michael Mosley recommends. The first is olive oil, because as well as adding flavor and taste, olive oil is one of the healthiest fats you can eat because it's rich in a range of polyphenols and antioxidants, which are good at damping down inflammation, whether in the brain, the breast, or the gut. Another food that he recommends is oily fish that have omega-3 fatty acids, for example, salmon, tuna, trout, sardines, mackerel, and herring. Now, some people are anxious about the mercury found in fish, though he says, I think the benefits clearly outweigh the risk. And he says that you can get more details about levels of mercury found in different fish from the US government's Food and Drug Administration website. You can get omega-3 fatty acids from other foods such as grass-fed beef, walnuts, flax seeds, and hemp oil, as well as another excellent natural source of omega-3, which is seaweed. And yes, if you don't like oily fish, well, there are always fish oil capsules, but of course they're not quite as effective in the body as real whole foods. I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. If you're a meat eater, what about meat like beef, lamb, and pork? In the last few years, Michael Mosley says we've seen plenty of headlines along the lines of all red meat is risky, or if you want to live longer, hold the red meat. Well, on the plus side, he says, we know that red meat is a great source of protein, and beef, whether whole or ground, is also an excellent source of iron and vitamin B12, which are what many people are chronically deficient in. And yes, there's a lot of fuss about the saturated fat in beef, for example, but is saturated fat as bad as is often claimed? Michael Mosley asks. Well, here's the thing. Recent scientific studies have shown that it's eating carbohydrates which increases levels of a particularly damaging form of cholesterol known as small particle LDL, low-density lipoprotein. Yet most doctors historically believed that saturated fat was the enemy. So after a few meta-analyses, which is when you pull together as many high-quality studies as you can find, in 2010, it was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and I quote, "We found the heart attack risk was slightly higher, but not significant. Stroke risk was actually reduced. So overall, if you took it across the entire range of disease, heart disease and stroke, there was absolutely zero effect of saturated fat from red meat on heart attacks." And other more recent meta-analyses, such as one from Cambridge University, came to similar conclusions. This may be somewhat shocking to you. It certainly was for me when I started reading up on it. So if you are interested in going a little bit deeper, this book, The Great Cholesterol Myth, might be a good read for you. Michael Mosley gives other examples of foods that may have been demonized but which are surprisingly good for your gut. And the good news is that cocoa is one of those foods. I didn't say chocolate, I said cocoa that isn't mixed up with sugar. Also eggs, wine in moderation, and lots of whole fruits and vegetables. And when it comes to fiber, Michael Mosley points out that although fiber in almost any form is helpful, there are some types of fiber that are particularly important when it comes to keeping your gut bacteria in good shape. And these are known as prebiotics. So a prebiotic is a special type of plant fiber which your body can't digest, but which encourages the growth of good bacteria in your gut. In fact, the good bacteria turn that prebiotic fiber into chemicals like butyrate, and butyrate has been shown to have powerful anti-inflammatory effects inside the bowel. So basically, prebiotics act a bit like a fertilizer, boosting the growth of the good bacteria that are already in your gut. Some examples that Dr. Michael Mosley gives in his book of prebiotic foods are onions, leeks, garlic, chicory, dandelion greens, Jerusalem artichoke, asparagus. These types of foods contain what we call resistant starch, which, as its name implies, resists digestion in your stomach and small intestine and reaches your colon largely intact. So you're unlikely to get high blood sugar spikes after eating these types of foods that contain resistant starch. And when you do eat these foods, when they reach the large intestine, they feed the good bacteria which digest it and release butyrate. And other good foods to eat are probiotic foods, for example, yogurt that you can definitely make yourself, as well as milk kefir, which is a fermented milk drink which uses what we call kefir grains to ferment milk. And actually, kefir is about 10 times more probiotic than yogurt. And very often, people who think they're lactose intolerant even find that their digestion improves with milk kefir. Good news! Cheese is also another type of fermented food, and again, people who think they may be lactose intolerant very often can tolerate cheese much better than milk. And this is real cheese I'm talking about, not those cheese products. And of course, there are all those yummy fermented vegetables like sauerkraut and kimchi that I teach how to make in the Freedom from Cravings Formula 90-day program, as well as apple cider vinegar, which is also fermented and probiotic, as well as probiotic drinks like kombucha and water or fruit kefir, which I also teach how to make in the program. Now, don't get all these yummy probiotic foods and drinks mixed up with probiotic capsules. Although there are some good probiotic capsules out there, most of the ones you'll find on drugstore shelves or supermarket shelves probably will make absolutely no difference to your gut health. First of all, because they only contain a few billion probiotics, which, as we saw, is nothing compared to the trillions that a healthy gut should have. And also because unless they're refrigerated and stored in an optimal environment, preferably refrigerated, all the way from the lab to where you buy them, very probably a lot of their goodness has disappeared during the supply and transportation chain. And also, don't get hoodwinked by all those supposedly probiotic products out there that may be very pretty and attractive for you and your kids, but are actually full of sugar. And sugar is the worst enemy for gut health. So here's the bottom line for good gut health. Eat whole, unprocessed foods, both prebiotic and probiotic. Taking Michael Mosley's information in his book as a starting point, inside of the Freedom from Cravings Formula program, I teach you to recognize these types of foods and to check labels so that you don't get hoodwinked by clever marketing and sugar-filled products. And avoid these types of sugars and starches, refined and added sugars and starches in products like breakfast cereals, white bread, jam, orange juice, pastries, and so on. Avoid liquid sugars, even so-called healthy ones like fruit juices, and especially sodas and other sweet drinks with added sugars. Avoid junk foods of pretty much all kinds. They're really not good for your gut health, as well as processed forms of fiber like high-fiber cereal. You're better off getting your fiber from real whole foods rather than food products. So I hope you found this episode helpful and informative, and that it inspired you to really start thinking about the importance of gut health in your overall health, and also the link between your gut health and sugar. In fact, reducing or cutting sugar is one of the best things you can do for your gut health. and adding in unprocessed forms of fiber and prebiotics, as well as probiotic fermented foods and drinks, are 2 more ways to look after your gut health, which in turn has been shown to greatly reduce cravings. And if better gut health and especially freedom from cravings is what you want in your life, that's what I'm here for. In fact, you can find the guidance, the support, and the motivation you need inside of my 12-week program, the Freedom from Cravings Formula. It's a program that's specifically designed for women over 50 who want to get rid of cravings and feel more in control around food, especially sugar and comfort foods. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on the big green button, Schedule a Clarity Call. We'll have a quick 30-minute one-on-one chat to see if the Freedom from Cravings Formula 90-day program is a good fit for you. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.